Hey everyone, welcome to the Maverick Show, where I interview thought leaders in the new economy. My name is UJ, and today we have with us Ameer Rosic. He's an optimal vitality specialist, the 2012 Canadian kettlebell champion, and he's a leading expert in fitness and health. And welcome to the show.
Yeah, my pleasure, UJ. Thanks
Great.
for having me.
Well, I'm really happy to have you here. And so just to give the audience a sense of what you do and how you do it, I'm curious, give us an example of two clients that you've seen, you worked with, and you got them from a place maybe that they were not healthy to a place where they are right now.
So give example of two clients?
Yes, please.
And what I did with them?
Yeah.
Alright, so I'll say one client, pretty recent client, was 34-year-old lady. She spent up to $250,000 on doctors worldwide, seeing these, so-called top expert doctors, and she was fed up, pretty much, right?
And so what was the condition? What was she?
I can't, out of confidentiality, I can't really say the conditions, but more or less, but she was having metabolic issues with the hormones. She couldn't lose weight per se, and basically everything was kind of downhill. Obviously, she just wants to be healthy. She wants to live a long life full of health. And so she found me through mutual friends, and I started working with her very closely. Obviously, in modern day times, when people are going to doctors or different practitioners, and when these practitioners are working with you, for example, if UJ comes to me and I see UJ's intake forms, I'm like, oh wow, UJ, you have migraines, you have hormonal disbalance, and I don't like the looks of the food you're eating. Right away, regular thought would be, okay, we need to put a band-aid on this. Maybe UJ needs pharmaceutical drugs, or maybe UJ needs some supplements, but that's not really the problem, is it, right? Why does UJ have these problems in the first place? So what I did with this first client, this lady, is I addressed the root cause of the problem, right? Always address the root cause. Look at it as a domino series. So if you have, say, weight issues or hormonal issues such as thyroid, if that's the fifth domino, if thyroid is your fifth domino in a series, what's that first domino that actually started that problem with thyroid? That's what matters. And so what was the first domino for her? Basically came down to a lot of food and nutrition. Right? For example, gluten can cause problems with the thyroid. Your adrenal glands, your cortisol can cause problems with thyroid. Parasite infection can cause problems with thyroid. Mineral disbalance, which magnesium, can cause problems with thyroid. External environmental influences can cause problems. There's many cofactors, and one by one will eliminate these cofactors.
And so what kind of changes do you ask her to make during the time that she worked with you?
All my clients, they sign on for a minimum 3-month plan. Right? Because you can't just see one professional for 1 hour and expect results. Obviously, you need guidance, coaching. There's no such thing as a standard protocol. I consider protocols to be fluid, like water. We adjust it. Maybe you don't react properly to these foods, even though the foods are healthy. Maybe these supplements that you're taking, yes, they're healthy, but your body doesn't react to it accordingly how it should. Right? So we have to really evaluate week by week what's going on, and we work together and we build a relationship. So it's everything. It's a full life change.
And so for her, what are some of the things you asked her to do in the beginning?
Just slowly, like cut out gluten, wheat completely.
Cut out gluten completely.
Yeah, that's horrible. Like, I should make that mandatory. Whoever's listening right now for the interview we're doing, cut out gluten. That's a.
Well, why cut out gluten? In many cultures, rice is a staple. You have wheat, that's a staple. Even the Bible, it's mentioned that bread is mentioned.
Yes, and that's a great question. The gluten, or I should say the wheat per se, because there's gluten involved in many different other elements. The gluten that we're eating today is completely different than the gluten that we had, say, even 60 years ago, right? So the condition that our grandmothers lived is not the same environment we're living today. And what are the differences in environment? Well, first of all, like in the 1960s, all the wheat around the world, for some reason, they decided to change it for a bigger yield. Right? So if you remember, we
genetic modification,
more or less transmutagenic. It's even worse than GMO because the GMO technology wasn't really perfected back then, right? So they had it more like this chaotic form of manipulating genes. So it was transmutagenic. So the wheat that we have today is 400 times more gluten-containing wheat, compared to 400 times less, circa 1960, right? And it's not just the gluten; it's everything else. The processed foods, the lack of sleep, right? The environment you're living in. These are all cofactors. Right? So now the wheat that you're eating right now, the gluten wheat is transmutagenic, it's mutated, but then you're eating it in abundance Plus, you're eating it with other types of food that's not real food, such as commercial dairy, processed foods, or I like to say SAD. It's abbreviation for the standard American diet. Right? Because honestly, guys, we're not eating really healthy food today.
No, we're not.
So what I did with this client, we just went down to basics.
Okay.
So how I look to work is a pyramid. Right? So we have a pyramid. You can't just specialize right away.
Sure.
So if I want to move into a beautiful house, so what's the first thing I'm going to do with the house? I'm going to build a foundation.
Yes.
Right? So you need a strong foundation for a strong body. So you can't just move in the house like, oh yeah, the roof's going to go with no foundation. That doesn't make no sense. So I like to work in a pyramid format, right? So if you're looking at the bottom of the pyramid, the base, what's the base for survival? What's the base for being healthy? Eating a whole foods diet. I like to specialize in ancestral diets. Foods.
So what we call the ancestral diet.
What do we call it? I like to call it ancestral diet, but what it is it's different from person to person per se, but there is a standard set guidelines to follow. No eating of grains, right? No eating of commercial dairy, and eliminate...
No grains. Now, what are grains?
So grains can fall under, like for example, wheat, kamut, barley, so grain-based. So people, to make it more simpler, pasta, bread, cereal, that's out, right?
So basically, you're saying take away grains because they're transmutagenic.
Well, the wheat's the main thing. It's if you're looking at what's happening in today's times, our genetics aren't really programmed to handle this amount of the grains, and it's these proteins in the grains. You have now high consumption of carbs. I'm not against carbs, there's healthy carbs, but you have now proteins such as gliadins, and not just gluten. You have many forms of gliadins like alpha, beta, so forth, and these gliadins, over the abundance use and through how our environment's been manipulated, these gliadins within your body are wreaking havoc.
And so tell me the evidence for gluten being...
Where do you want to start? There's hundreds of studies done on it. I'll make something simple that people can relate to. Celiac. People have heard of celiac disease, right? So basically you have genetic inheritance, you know, HLA-DQ8 genes, and you have certain immune issues that if you have gliadin and gluten, your own immune system attacks itself, because that gluten and gliadin will attack your immune system and trick your immune system to eat itself.
And so what is functional diagnostic testing?
Well, basically, an intake form can take you so far, right? So if UJ comes to me with an intake form and I'm looking at intake forms, and we've done the basics, right? So we're looking at the basics. UJ's eating an ancestral diet, paleo diet. He's going to bed at 10 o'clock. He's walking outside. He's getting his vitamin D. He's taking some magnesium. Things are better, but they're not great. Right? You want to go, you know, from okay to awesome, right? You want to become awesome. So he wants to get to that level, you know, the pinnacle, top of the pyramid. And this is where functional diagnostic testing is. There's a specialized approach that will take, for example, hair samples, saliva samples, urine samples, and sometimes stool samples to identify certain biomarkers in UJ's body to see exactly what's happening. And I'll give you a great example. Like, we can take a stool sample and see, wow, UJ has parasites. Really no diet's going to help you against the parasites. Now we have to make a protocol to attack the parasites. Or we do a genetic testing. And I see UJ genetically has these mutations that doesn't allow him to eat, you know, onions or garlic. UJ's been eating a lot of onions and garlic. But they're healthy, don't get me wrong, but your body can't handle it at the specific moment. So we really dissect biochemically if there's something physically harming you and what else is bothering your body on a biochemical level.
And so do you do testing with all your clients or just a few of them?
I try to make it mandatory for all my clients. So first I focus on basics. Remember the pyramid. So once we start to go in the pyramid, after a month or so, like 30 days, then we specialize.
So let's say someone in the audience was working with you. Talk to me about the pyramid. Talk to me about the basics. The grains is one of them.
Basics, right away. Like I said, we're going to start on a paleo diet. Focus on sleep, focus on environment, focus on smart, healthy exercise, right? Not stupid exercise.
And so what's smart, healthy exercise for you?
Depending on the person and what they want to achieve. For me, it would be training 3 times a week and not over pushing your... So I was mentioning before, there's smart CrossFit and there's stupid CrossFit, right? So I'm not going to tell the client if I see adrenal problems to start doing CrossFit yet.
Makes sense.
Right? So we want to build a pyramid. So I want to hear neurologically. Your central nervous system has to heal. Once you heal the central nervous system with, you know, like I was mentioning, quick burst of exercise, very short, 15 minutes, and joint mobility, then we work up.